What's up, everybody? This is Jay the Wanderer with Oakland Latinos Unidos, aka Oakland Latinos United, the voice of the Latino community in the Bay Area, California, YouTube, and beyond. Well, this is part 2 of my oral history lesson that I was doing about the history of the Chicano movement in Oakland, California, in the Fruitvale district in the late 1960s and 1970s. And where I left off was at the Brown Berets and the Chicano Moratorium. Well, in part 2, I'm going to talk about some of the other organizations that were part of the Chicano movement in Oakland, which has been ignored by the history books, and now I've documented most of it, and I'm going to bring you the story. And a lot of you out there who are part of the Chicano movement in Oakland that are watching this video are probably going to fucking trip out. So enjoy the video and let's talk more. Okay, we left off at the Brown Berets and the Chicano Moratorium. And now let's go to another organization that existed in Oakland in the 60s, which was very similar to the Brown Berets and was a militant organization. They were called the Chicano Revolutionary Party. And this is an actual picture of the Chicano Revolutionary Party. Who was the Chicano Revolutionary Party? They were a militant organization that was associated with the Black Panthers. And they ran, their headquarters was on Fruitvale and Farnham Street, which is today the Native American Health Gym. I'm pretty sure a lot of you who live in the Fruitvale area or in Oakland or familiar with the neighborhood know where this is at. The Chicano Revolutionary Party was a very militant organization. They were against police brutality. They were for the right to bear arms, just like the Black Panthers. They had their own free breakfast program in the Fruitvale area, particularly in Jingletown, out of Mary Help of Christians Catholic Church. And they did a free breakfast program in the late 60s to, feed the young Chicano kids and young Latino kids and black kids also in the neighborhood. This is more pictures of the Chicano Revolutionary Party. The Chicano Revolutionary Party did barrio patrols, which was basically go out in the neighborhood, and if they seen somebody getting harassed by the police, they would go up to the cops and they would let them know that they were watching them observe their duty, and they would also let the person getting arrested know their rights. And the police basically hated this organization, just like they hated any other organization at that time, like the Black Panthers and the Brown Berets. This is another picture of the Chicano Revolutionary Party. It says, "All power to the people." The Chicano Revolutionary Party lasted about, probably from 1968 till about sometime in 1972 or 73. The breakup of the Chicano Revolutionary Party, just like the Black Panthers and the Brown Berets, was basically under COINTELPRO with the FBI, infiltration from the Oakland police, and also internal fights that the organization had amongst its members. Here's an actual picture of their free breakfast program that they did in the neighborhood known as Jingletown at Mary Help of Christians Catholic Church. And the Chicano Revolutionary Party was very militant, and from what I heard, their headquarters had been raided many times, and they had got a lot of harassment. But eventually, the organization was no more, just like many of the other organizations of that era. Cesar Chavez. Let's talk about Cesar Chavez. He has some connections to Oakland. Here's a picture of him actually in West Oakland with now Mayor Ron Dellums. There's Ron Dellums. This picture was taken sometime in the mid-70s. And believe it or not, Cesar Chavez started in Oakland as an activist. A lot of people don't know that. He started in an organization called Community Service Organization. And he had a lot of ties to the city of Oakland and had a lot of support from the Chicano community and the black community as well. And my mom met him in the 70s when he would come to Oakland to some of the Chicano rallies in Oakland to speak. And here's a picture with him with former Mayor Lionel Wilson in the 1970s. So, Cesar Chavez even had ties to Oakland, as well as Dolores Huerta, which was his partner in the United Farm Workers. So, as you can see, there was connections going on between Oakland and the other movements. Right here, let's look at something else that's interesting about Oakland. In the 1970s, a group of Chicano medical students from UC Berkeley felt that there wasn't no kind of clinic or no kind of medical needs for the local Chicano, Latino, Mexicano community of the Fruitvale area. So they decided to go around the neighborhood talking to Chicanos and Mexicanos and Latinos to see if they had good health services. And the community, of course, said they didn't. And they decided to open this place up. This was the first original Clinica de la Raza, which means Clinic of La Raza. And La Clinica de la Raza still exists to this day. And the creation of this clinic was a direct result of the Chicano movement. Here's the famous mural that once existed there on Fruitvale. And here's the guy who painted it. He's actually my homeboy's granddad. His name was Raimundo Salas Neville. And the Neville family is a famous artist family, Chicano artist family of Oakland. And, the La Clinica La Raza it's probably one of the biggest clinics in the Bay Area, and it was created as a direct result of the Chicano movement in Oakland. Another organization that exists now and was created during that time was Centro Legal de la Raza. And this was the original building where they first started on East 14th near 38th Avenue. And now that's International Boulevard. But the Centro Legal de la Raza was basically started by a group of UC Berkeley Chicano students who were studying law. And they opened this up as a legal aid center for the local Chicano community. Because, unfortunately, a lot of Latinos, Chicanos, and Mexicanos are very ignorant of the law. And this organization basically was created to help them learn more about the law and, have lawyers and stuff like that. And this organization still exists, and it's a direct result of the Chicano movement. Like I said, this is an actual picture of a protest in the Fruitvale area in the 1970s. And, there was a lot of stuff going on. And this is one of the ladies of the Chicano movement. Her name was Carmen Flores, and she was a local Chicana activist. She worked with many different organizations, and she passed away, unfortunately, in the late 90s. There's a community center in the Fruitvale area named after her. Her name was Carmen Flores. This is another person who was part of the Chicano movement also. Her name was Josie de la Cruz, and she was a local Chicana activist in the Fruitvale area. She was actually born in the original West Oakland neighborhood in West Oakland back in the 1920s. And she did a lot of activism with many different organizations in the Fruitvale area. She passed away also in the late 90s, and the park on Fruitvale Avenue that was once called Sanborn today is named after her, Josie de la Cruz. And this organization also started during the Chicano movement. In 1965, it's called the Spanish-Speaking Citizens Foundation, which is also an organization that helps Latinos and Chicanos and Mexicanos with many different issues like legal aid advice, immigration advice, and many other things. And also the Unity Council, which is another organization in the Fruitvale area, started in 1964. And they were like an anti-poverty program, and they were created to fight poverty within the Latino community of Oakland at those times. This school right here was actually one of the first bilingual Chicano-Mexicano schools in Oakland, believe it or not. This was a very radical idea at that time. It was called LaEscuela, and it's located in East Oakland on, like 3rd Avenue. And this school was opened during the Chicano movement to help kids, that didn't speak Spanish, they didn't speak English, and to help kids learn more about their culture and many other things. Another thing that was open during that era was Centro Infantil de la Raza, which was a preschool for Chicanos and Mexicanos, and it was also open as a direct result of the Chicano movement in the 70s and 60s. And my mom actually helped organize La Escuelita and this Centro Infantil de la Raza. So, my family had a lot to do with these schools opening up. And there was a lot of protests to get them open, and also there was a lot of protests when the school board wanted to close them, the school district. So, these schools still exist, and they're a direct result of the Chicano movement in Oakland. You know, many students, this is a picture of Fremont High School students in 1969. As you can see, some of them were wearing brown berets. And many students, just like the East LA students, many students around Fremont High School, Oakland Tech, Castlemont, and many others, you know, many Chicano students organize walkouts. They organize youth conferences for Chicanos. They organize more Chicano studies and more, a lot of things. You know what I mean? They basically wanted to empower their education to have a better education and learn more about themselves. And to this day, many schools in the Bay Area and many colleges have Raza studies, Chicano studies, and many other things like that. And I'm kind of out of time, so I'm just going to kind of break it down what organizations existed back then. There was La Causa, which was a college organization. There was Teatro Triste, which was an organization that basically made Chicano theater. There was Frente. There was La Voz. There was Frente, which organized the Joaquin Murrieta House in Berkeley. And they had a newspaper called La Voz del Pueblo. There was Colegio de Aslan, Raza Unida Party.